Welcome, everybody, to the Broker Life podcast. My name is Mark Panazon, and I'm a mortgage broker with Mortgage Connection. I'm licensed in Alberta and British Columbia have been doing mortgages for over 15 years. I am here to give you greater insights into the real estate and mortgage industry in Canada by diving deep into the minds of the professionals who live and work it every day. Today's guest is Michael Waddell, Realtor at ReMax Rivercity in Edmonton, Alberta. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, man. How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Great. Thanks for jumping on. Let's dive right in, man. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into real estate?
Well, I've been pretty much born and raised in Edmonton my whole life. I became a realtor in 2014, so almost 9 years ago. It's been a good ride ever since. Why I got into it? I really enjoyed watching it on TV. I thought it'd be cool. I don't really have any cool story why I got into it. I just thought it was a good way to live my life, have a good career, help people, and it's been good so far.
All right, great. And any particular reason why you chose ReMax and ReMax Rivercity? Because you've been at that brokerage for how long?
Yeah, well, when I got my license, I interviewed 3 or 4 different brokerages, and I just felt with the support that I wanted. Keep in mind, I didn't know anyone in the industry when I got my license, so I just joined, not knowing anyone. I wanted a broker or brokerage that would have mentorship and whatnot. So that's kind of how I began my career. That's why I chose ReMax. I haven't always been with Rivercity. My previous ReMax brokerage was bought out by Rivercity, so it was kind of just a natural transition into Rivercity. So it's been great ever since.
You find that there's a real big difference between the big brands like ReMax versus some of the smaller guys? What's the advantage?
You know what? Name recognition. I think for a newer agent is probably a lot more important than someone who's a little more senior in the industry. Personally, I think things are going a little bit differently now. I don't think people rely on the big names as much as they used to. There's a ton more like boutique style brokerages in Edmonton and across the country as well that are doing very well. I think as long as you have a good reputation as an agent, you'll do okay with whatever brokerage you're at.
Okay. What's your favorite thing about real estate?
I think, the flexibility to do what you want. There's I could go on vacation if I wanted to. I could take some weekends off. Generally, it's pretty busy, but, I set my own hours. I'm my own boss, which is really nice. I don't have anyone to report to. So I can schedule that. I can grow a team. I can grow my business as much or as big as I want and as quickly as I want. There's no one else telling me how I have to run my business. So it's unique in that sense where I don't have an employer telling me what to do day to day.
It's the entrepreneur life, right? But you work
Yeah.
a lot. Realtors work a ton. You're always working days, evenings. I've known you for a while, and I mean, it's a full-time job, 24/7. So is it still better than working a 9 to 5?
Oh yeah, for sure. And like in any industry, you get what you put into it. So I see a lot of agents who don't put a lot of effort into the real estate business and therefore don't have a lot of results because of it. So I know how hard I work, which does show because of my results. But like anything in life, you get out of it what you put into it. If you treat it like a real business rather than like a job or a hobby, you're going to have really good results. And that's kind of what's happened over the past few years.
Are you a one-man show?
Sort of. I'm the only realtor. I have a part-time assistant who lives in Ontario who does basically everything on the back end for me. So with the volume that I've been doing, she basically has been doing everything behind the scenes, which allows me a little more freedom to work with clients and a little more time off as well, because it could be pretty strenuous and time demanding if you're doing it all yourself all the time. And I think that's when I hired my assistant, that's really when my business started to grow.
That's interesting. It's funny because we're in similar industries, and I am a one-man show, but I've had assistants in the past in previous roles. And you're right, it's kind of a scalability thing, right? You just can't scale unless you have that support, especially with paperwork and the administrative tasks that are both very big in our jobs. So that's good to hear. Now you've been crushing this for a while. Every time I go on Instagram or Facebook, I'm just seeing Michael Waddell winning another award. What's kept you motivated, and what sort of inspires you to keep going?
Well, I'll say that in real estate, you can get an award for basically anything. So I wouldn't always pay too much attention to that. I grew up pretty much in like poverty. So that has really motivated me to not to live a life that I've always wanted to live and to provide for my family as well. I don't want them to go through the struggles I went to. So I've always been very motivated because of how I grew up. I think that's a big thing. And then I was in Toronto last year on stage speaking to 1,100 realtors, and I told them my story as well. And so many people can relate to it. I think, I don't ever want to get back to where I came from, and I want to have a life, that I'm super proud of. And I want the flexibility to go on vacations and travel with my family and kids and whatnot. So, I've always worked hard because of that.
Rags to riches story.
Sort of. Yeah. Yeah. Lots of struggles growing up. So it's definitely kept me humble and it's kept me motivated for sure.
Well, you've done a great job, man.
Thanks, bud.
Let's talk about the market. So what areas of Edmonton do you serve?
Pretty much anywhere Edmonton and area. So Edmonton's got about 6 or 7 suburbs all around Edmonton, and service all of it within reason, as long as it's within an hour and a half drive. I'll pretty much go there. If I'm too busy, I do have other agents who do help me out who will take on additional business, but as long as it's within an hour and a half, I'll generally do it. For special clients, maybe a little bit further. A lot of acreage properties are a little bit further out. So it really just depends on the time of year and the client I'm working with.
What's the demographic of people you're helping? I ask this because, as people probably know, I moved to Victoria almost 2 years ago now, and it's a very different market out here. And I ask realtors out here what the demographic is and who's buying homes, because the price point's quite a bit different. Edmonton, we'll get into the stats in a little bit here, but Edmonton's a relatively stable market and very affordable market. So are you helping literally everybody, or is there more of a specific type of demographic, talking about first-time home buyers, baby boomers, immigrants? Like, who are the people you're helping?
I'd say mainly, if I had to guess, about 75% of my business is probably people under 45. However, I'm working with some people right now who are 89. So it's a pretty big spread. I don't specialize in any demographic. I'm 37. So, a lot of my clients are the same age or younger. A lot of my friends and family, whatnot. So I would say majority of my clientele is probably under 40. But there's no specific demographic that I target. In Edmonton specifically, the prices are pretty stable. We didn't see the major increases that your market saw or Ontario saw, and we didn't see the major decreases that those markets saw as well. So we're seeing a lot of people from Ontario and BC making their way to Edmonton over the past year. That's probably been the second biggest source of my business. And I would say majority of them are all under 40 as well, because they can't afford the lifestyle in some of the more expensive places in Canada.
Like where I am. Yeah. I just checked recently, the average price in Victoria is, I think it's around 930,000. And Edmonton is closer to 400,000, a little bit under. So yeah, I'm still trying to figure out who's buying homes out here, because it's wildly outrageous. And what you get for 900,000 is, you can buy a condo for $1 million if you want. So
yeah, that's wild. You can buy a pretty nice house in Edmonton for $1 million.
So what is the biggest challenge with the Edmonton market right now?
The biggest challenge is probably lack of inventory. What we're seeing, I think it's pretty common anywhere in Canada for the most part. And that was probably one of the biggest reasons our prices didn't drop like a lot of other markets, is we didn't have a ton of inventory. So the demand was still there. Had we had a ton of inventory, I think we would have seen a little more price decreases. But since the demand was still pretty high, we were pretty good overall.
So what are you doing to help sort of mitigate that? So if there's not a lot of homes for sale, inventory is low, and really we're just relying on government at this point to help put more homes in the market or speed that process up, or but we can't really rely on them. So how can you help your clients find the home or negotiate on homes when there's just not that many available?
Well, I do think over the next little while, we're going to start seeing more listings hit the market. And I do think biggest reason is because there was a lot of skepticism with the interest rates being higher. I think now that they've kind of normalized and people realize they're not going to drop to pre-pandemic levels, people are starting to list again. Buyers are starting to buy again. In terms of how do I keep a buyer, become or be competitive in a competitive market, make sure they're prepared, set expectations, making sure you're having a good conversation with their mortgage broker, pre-approval letters, all that, because when you present an offer, you want to be able to present the most solid offer that the seller is going to choose. I was in a multiple offer last week. There were 6 offers. You provide pre-approval letters and a letter from the buyer why they love this property, and you set the terms. Have a desired possession date, larger deposit, shorter conditions. Obviously best price if possible. so many things like that you can set up for success. And even for me, trying to find more listings, I've reached out to everyone I've talked to in the past 4 or 5 years who didn't list to see if they're willing or if they're wanting to list now. Going through expired listings to see, maybe there was a listing that expired end of 2022 that didn't sell. The market was in decline then. Are they maybe looking to sell? So you reach out to those realtors who had those properties listed, and maybe there's other listings there. So just trying to be a little more proactive. I know some agents are door knocking to find new listings. That's not really my style, but there's so many opportunities out there to find new listings. You just got to work for it.
Is there a such thing as buyer fatigue?
Oh yeah, I think there's realtor fatigue too. After the 2 years of COVID, they were pretty strenuous. I think everyone is tired. People, I remember last year, for example, I'd get home at 8 p.m. from showings with clients and something else would get listed, and I'd have to turn back out and go view those properties again because there's going to be 4 or 5 offers on it that night. So everyone was tired, including realtors, mortgage brokers, inspectors. Everyone in the industry was tired. The news, people watching the news was tired about hearing it. So there was a ton of buyer fatigue. So I think the end of 2022, the last quarter, and the first 1 or 2 months of this year, people were just chilling out, taking it easy. Now we're starting to see a bit of a resurgence with buyers coming back out, at least in Edmonton and Alberta. Just because there's a bit more confidence, people aren't as tired anymore.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I'm definitely seeing a lot more volume the last couple months as people start to get normalized. And if you look at honestly any metric, there was the big dip in really just activity in the market during COVID. And then there was a massive spike. And so it's the old saying, what goes up must come down, and vice versa. And it seems like we've just made that transition, and now we're going to basically continue on that trend. So I hope you're right, and I hope this is the trend that continues, because it was just a real traumatic couple of years for everybody involved, right? It's hard to maintain that.
Yeah, it really was. And if you take out what I found interesting, everyone focuses on the price decreases from last year in Edmonton. Yeah, sure, they dropped quite a bit, and the media really focuses on that and creates panic for everyone. However, if you take out the 2 COVID years, we're the highest price we've ever been in Edmonton. And no one really sees that or has reported that. So although prices are down year over year, if you look back on a sliding scale of the last 20 years in Edmonton, other than 21 and 2022, we're the highest we've ever been. So prices are relatively stable and on a positive trajectory.
Okay, so let's get into some stats here. I pulled some stats from 2 sources to try and get an average here. So one of them is CREA, which is the Canadian Real Estate Association. That's the big one. And then another one is we get a report from Sagen, which is one of the insurers in Canada. They do their own reports. So here's a couple interesting stats. Would love your comments on these. So let's start with Sagen. So Sagen's recent Alberta housing market indicates that Edmonton is a seller's market, with year-over-year prices down 9%, year-over-year listings down 28%, and year-over-year number of sold down 45%, with the average price of $370,000 for a home. With all these numbers being down, listings down, sales down, prices down, is that even a fair metric based on what we just went through with the COVID highs, and the market's just now normalizing? So the lows don't seem like they're actually that big of a stat. So it's almost like a stat you can ignore, or is this more significant?
It kind of just goes along with what I just said. I do think that if you take out the COVID years, we're still looking pretty good. Sales are down. Prices are down 9%. I think you said sales are down about 28%. Are we in a seller's market? I would say we're kind of there in some capacity. Listings are down that many percent. So like I said, we have a listing shortage here. Anytime we have a listing shortage, the sellers are going to have the upper advantage. But with that said, it's not like the seller's market where you're getting 15 offers on a property. Buyers right now are still a little hesitant. So when it comes to pricing, you still have to be priced relatively well based on what has recently sold. Last year, you could set a price at whatever and it would sell. It was wild. I'm kind of glad we're not there, because that was just the amount of increases we saw so quickly. That's not sustainable in any market. So I do think if you're looking at last year's stats, it's going to look bad, but if you're looking at the last 5 years, I think it'll look okay. So I do think we're sitting relatively where we should be. I think things have normalized, like you said.
You're right. These are really deceiving, right? Because you look at the year over year stats, they look really dramatic. Number of solds down 45%, but you really do have to take a longer average. That's a really good point.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So I would, like I said, the media, they love to spin a negative story. So I think if you're focusing on last year, it's going to look bad. But if you're focusing on the bigger picture, it's not too bad.
so for argument's sake, I'll quote a couple more year over year stats. These are all home prices. So what I'd like to figure out here is if there's a trend. So detached homes averaged 485, averages 485, down 6% year over year. Semi-detached 365, down 4%. Row townhouses 247, down 7%, and condos are 192, down 5%. So 4, 6, 4, 7, 5, all pretty close. That again is no real surprise based on the exact same thing we just said, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
So
um,
go ahead.
no, I just think that I think the last year stats, it was a great year. It was a record year, I think, in Canada real estate, or at least in Edmonton. So anytime you're comparing against the record, I think you're going to be a little skewed. Just like everyone, 2007 was Edmonton's previous record year. And everyone was always comparing against those prices as well. So I think it's just relative depending on what you're looking at. So overall, in a grand scheme of things, I think we're sitting pretty healthy here.
So given that there's some supply constraints in the market, and you could probably make this argument for all of Canada, prices are down, relative to what we just spoke of. Is there any specific type of home that's selling more than others? Like, are condos more hot? I know, like, for example, in this market, or if you look at the housing starts Canada-wide, the housing starts for condo and apartments are way higher than they are for detached homes. Now, again, that's another stat that's a little bit skewed because the condo starts are probably more significant in the higher price markets like Toronto and Vancouver, Victoria. So obviously, affordability is a bigger concern. But what about Edmonton? Are you seeing more condos fly off the shelves, detached homes, or does it really matter because it's such a balanced, maybe not a balanced market, but just a more affordable market?
Yeah, you're right. So over the past couple of years, I'll back it up a little bit. The condo market hasn't been great, just because our housing market is so affordable. You could spend an extra $200,000 and get a pretty nice house. However, over the last like 6 months, every condo listing that I've taken on has almost sold in like a couple days. So as long as they're priced well, um, and I believe the reason for that is because of higher interest rates. The affordability is a little bit less than what it was the last couple of years. However, with that said, it's really based on location. If you were to ask me that question, how is the downtown market? I would tell you it's probably not that great. But if you're kind of on the outskirts of downtown or the suburbs of Edmonton, you're looking pretty good. Like I just had one condo listing I sold in, I think it was 4 days. We had an offer fall through due to financing and got it pending another accepted offer like literally hours later. And that's just kind of how hot it's been. And I just listed my aunt's condo last week, and we had an accepted offer almost full price in like 24 hours. And that wasn't happening in the last few years. You're pretty much in for 100 days anytime you listed a condo. But
Wow.
now, like some of the newer buildings, you can probably bank on it if it's well priced, like 2 weeks, which is kind of nice.
Okay. So let me get some projections out of you then. So if condos are selling a little bit more because rates are higher, rates will be coming down, in my estimation, as early as late this year, but more likely probably next spring. Um, and this is another one of those things where what goes up must come down. Inflation has been high. Inflation's down to 4% from the high of 8. We're literally halfway there. So give it another 6 months or even a year, and rates, get into that more affordable space. How will that impact the market? Will we see a bit of a reversal there and more people get back into the detached homes and the condo market slowing again? Or is there something else involved there?
I would still say the housing market, like the single family homes, are always going to be a little more active. I should probably preface what I was saying regarding the condos. Like the condo market's a lot better now. I wouldn't say it's great. I would say it's getting better for sure. There's a lot more positivity in the market. It's healthier now. But I still think just due to our average prices here, people are going to revert back to single family homes anytime they can. You just have buyers who are either looking to downsize or a little more confidence in the condo market now, which is why you're starting to see them sell a bit more. But I still see condos that are sitting on the market for months on months. So your pricing still has to be accurate when it comes to a condo. But I think overall, most people are looking to buy houses. Like even earlier in my career, I could probably say about 40% of my business was condos. last year, I would say 10 or 15% of them were condos. So
Wow.
I would say still majority of people are going to look for a single family home just because of our prices are a lot more affordable.
Interesting. This might be a silly question, but I'll ask it anyways. You know, I've often heard and even asked myself this question, which is, when is the best time to buy? But I'm going to phrase it in a way that's more sort of like macro and micro. So, is there a season that makes sense when it's the best to buy a home? Usually either spring or summer. And then also in general, given all the stats and economic indicators, is it a good time to buy in general?
It's a loaded question.
Yep.
I could easily make an argument anytime. It really is depending on your situation. When's the best time? It's when you're ready. But the better, the larger answer, if you're looking at the price, average prices in Edmonton, you're going to see every single spring it goes up. Every single fall or maybe winter it goes back down. Our market is seasonal in the sense that it gets very cold here. You know that, Mark. So there's less buyers that are wanting to look November, December, January, February because of the weather. With that said, there's less listings, but generally over time is what you see in the stats is the prices go down in the winter. So if you're a buyer, the winter might not be a terrible time to buy because you might be able to get a better deal. However, there's less listings. So it's a double-edged sword. You get the majority of your buyers in the spring or summer because, again, it's nicer out. There's not 5 feet of snow. And there's more listings to choose from. So it's really hard to fully answer that question, but I would say to give you an answer, I'd say the best time to buy if you're a buyer looking for the best deals, probably in the winter. But you're gonna have more options in the spring or summer. But like the increases in prices over spring and winter aren't going to be massive by any means. So it's going to be like a 1% difference, maybe, maybe two. Like it's not going to be a massive difference in price. So again, going back to whenever you're ready to buy is probably the best time to buy, to be completely honest.
Yeah, that's really interesting because it's such a seasonal business because Edmonton is so cold. And so, nobody wants to move in the winter. But if you're going to save a little bit and, the home that you're looking to find is available in the winter, then you could really save. I mean, 1 or 2% is not that much in this market, but yeah, interesting. I like that take.
Yeah, and it really depends. Like if there's a month where we usually have 1 month where it's minus 30, you're going to see sales dip then. So you might have more motivated sellers who are looking to sell their property. So yeah, every situation is completely different. It really depends how long the property's been on the market as well. So no real answer to that, but I think you kind of understand what I'm saying.
I want to talk about technology. So, technology is advancing pretty exponentially right now. If you turn on the news, you'll see there's another, AI company out there building something. Chat GPT has been a really popular technology that's come out recently. Automations. How do you view how do you view technology and the real estate industry, and how do they work together? And sort of how do you harness technology in your business?
Well, I think it's, you can't ignore it. Just like the internet back in the day in early real estate, never used to have MLS. ChatGPT and those types of technologies are definitely going to have an impact on us. I've used it in my business, just a little bit here and there. I still don't fully understand it, but my assistant probably does better than I do. But I think if you ignore it, you're going to be kind of lost in the wind, right? So I think you got to embrace it. Even doing video or podcasts and whatnot, like no one was comfortable doing video to begin with. The more you do it, the better you get at it, just like social media. So I think, if you're willing to adapt, I think you're going to be successful.
Is there any specific technologies or systems that you use in your business, whether it just be, videos for your showing, for your listings, or anything that jumps out at you?
Yeah, no, for sure. Video's been huge. I think that's probably the biggest game changer in real estate over the last, I don't know, since I got my license 8 years ago. That's the biggest technology shift. I'm naturally not comfortable on camera myself. The more you practice it, the more you practice it, just even sending one-on-one videos and then gradually do listing videos or podcasts like this, like the more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to get at it. Now I'd say I'm pretty comfortable doing it. Like I always joke I'm more of a selfie guy than I am a video guy. But I had to adapt. Otherwise I'd fall behind. And If you're doing video, more people are going to see you as well. So that's just having more eyes on you, I guess. And social media, you can leverage that as well with video. So many advantages of it in your business. And I think like ChatGPT is going to be one of those next big. I think it's going to shake up everything, not just real estate.
Adapt or die, right?
100%.
Um, so with that, do you see any disruptions in the real estate industry? As a realtor, you are a classic, what do they say, like boots on the ground, like you're physically going to homes, you're meeting people, you're showing people, and that's probably, in my estimation, like, a real great part of your job is you're meeting a lot of people, you're seeing a lot of cool properties, you're moving around, like you're actively engaged in the city, in the market, in the community. Um, do you think technology is going to disrupt that in any way?
I don't think so. I think real estate's one of those
Is your
unique.
job safe, basically?
I hope so. I think real estate's one of those unique careers where people really still need to go visit them in person. Like there's been technology-based real estate companies who try to do it all from internet, and they haven't really been that successful. I think Zillow was one of them. Don't quote me on that, but people want to see what they're buying. I maybe 2 or 3 times a year I'll actually sell a house over FaceTime. The majority of people aren't comfortable doing that. They want to step inside. You don't really know if you like a house until you actually step inside of it. 100 like all the time I can have people text me a listing and say, we absolutely love this one, we want to buy it. We go view it in person, and they don't have it doesn't give them the house feel, the home feel. So I think it's one of those things that are never going to change no matter how much technology you implement into real estate. They're always going to have to go view the property in person. And just having the experience of whoever realtor you end up using, location based or whatever it might be. ChatGPT might not be able to give you all the ins and outs of certain parts of the house or the neighborhood and whatnot. So I think it's still going to be relied pretty heavily on an experienced agent when you're buying a house for sure, and even selling a house.
Where do you see the real estate industry in the next, I don't know, 5 or 10 years?
I think it's going to be very similar to what it is now, to be completely honest. I think there's going to be fads and trends of these things coming in, but at the end of the day, I think people still want to work with a realtor. They want to see a property. They want to build a relationship with people. So, and you don't get that with online services. So it's not the same. I've had people try to do some of that before. It doesn't work out the same.
Are you seeing a lot of realtors come into the market during this time, like new agents, or is it pretty standard and consistent over the past 8, 10 years,
I
however you've been in?
I'd say, well, the last 2 years were probably my only real 2 good years of like crazy real estate market in Edmonton. It's always been kind of a buyer's market in Edmonton. So to experience a market that has never really been seen before in Edmonton was pretty wild. And you see a lot of agents who think it's easy, or a lot of new agents who think it's easy, and they join the real estate business thinking it's going to be a quick buck, and they find out real quick it's not as easy as we might make it look like it is on social media. So going back to the joking about the awards, there's an award for everything. So people are posting that all the time, and everyone's like, oh, well, I can do this as well. But as soon as you start getting your real estate license, you realize how expensive it really is to be a realtor, how much time commitment there is, and how hard it is. And the hardest part about our job is truthfully is finding new clients. Selling a house and helping someone buy a house is hard, but it's not that hard if you know what you're doing. But finding new clients is challenging. So we saw a lot of new agents come in the market, 21, 22, and we're seeing a lot more leave now because it's a lot harder. Like even myself and all the other agents I talk to in Edmonton, this year's a lot more challenging than the past couple of years, just because of buyer fatigue and people don't have as much confidence. Interest rates are higher. There's so many variables. So we see a lot of new agents enter the market when it's busy and things are going good, but we see a lot of agents leave the market when it gets more challenging.
That's a good segue. So you mentioned that it's hard to find buyers, right? That's like the hardest thing in real estate, maybe. The immigration numbers are off the charts. The migration and immigration numbers are off the charts. Alberta is one of the provinces that is really benefiting from interprovincial migration. A lot of people, as you mentioned, coming from Ontario, even BC. And then Canada as a whole is immigrating more people than we ever have in previous years. I think so far we've had 1 million people join Canada since January, which is far greater than the annual average. So, which I think is 500,000 or something. So, with all these people flooding into the market, not enough homes being built, um, interest rates still being high, is this really just a negative thing for the time being, where this is just going to drive prices higher because there's all this pent up demand, all these new immigrants, everybody wants to buy a home. It's a very affordable city. Even though interest rates are a little high, they are pausing and potentially coming the way down. Are we kind of headed for this perfect storm, say like next spring market of like, prices up 20% in Edmonton or something crazy like that? Or do you think that that's just going to shake out and people will take a more gradual approach?
No,
That's a tough
no,
question.
it is. I'd be very surprised if we saw major increases like that. We've never really experienced it in Edmonton. Maybe last year a little bit, but then things came back to reality pretty quickly. I think last year, don't quote me on this, but I think Alberta saw the highest population increase we've ever experienced in the history of Alberta. There's a ton of migration coming here. Like my phone has never been busier from out of province agents calling me, referring me clients. So I'm definitely seeing it. And last year, out of province referrals was my second biggest source of business, other than repeat and referral.
Yeah.
So we're definitely seeing it. I do think, is there going to be a perfect storm? Yeah, there could be. You're going to see price increases. The more buyers that come here and there's not enough listings, it's basic supply and demand. If you don't have enough supply and the demand is high, well, then that's going to increase prices. So I do think right now we're at a point where we do have a sustainable enough amount of listings uh, to balance the number of buyers that are coming here. But if the listings decrease anymore, I do think that we will run into an issue. But however, on the flip side, I do think maybe in the next year or two, sellers who are maybe over leveraged or have too much debt might have to downsize because they can't afford the new interest rate on their property. So there's that as well. So you might see more listings come to market. So it's really hard to answer. I can't give you a great answer. I don't think we're going to see massive price increases. Alberta's always been pretty steady in terms of 3-5% every year sort of thing. So
You're bang on. The Korea reports overall inventory in the greater Edmonton area was up 22% year over year and up 11% just month over month. It's still below the 10-year average. So inventory levels are still low, but it is improving. And on our call we had last week with Sajan, the economics person on there, giving the highlight, was basically indicating that Edmonton is building a lot more homes than Calgary is right now, and then there's going to be a lot of growth in Edmonton. So I'm very curious to see what this next year looks like. I got one more for you, and then we'll jump into the speed round. What is one tip that you would give Canadians right now looking to enter the housing market this year?
be prepared. That's probably the biggest thing I see. Like I run into issues all the time with buyers who think that they're going to be pre-approved for X amount. Whether you're 3 or 4 years away, get a plan in place. See it all the time. Like people generally won't act on talking to a mortgage broker until they're ready to buy a house, which I think is probably not the right idea, because if you want to buy a house tomorrow and you get talked to a mortgage broker today and you realize that you have too much debt or your debt ratios are off and you can't afford what you want to buy, that's a conversation you could have had 1 or 2 or 3 years ago, set a plan in place. That way you're set up for success when you do go to buy. I'd say that's probably the biggest issue that we're seeing is everyone, I talk to buyers when they call me on listings. Oh yeah, I'll be good for that price. Well, they usually never are. There's a lot more that goes into it to getting a pre-approval than just showing that you make X dollars a year. So I think the biggest thing would be preparation for sure. And lenders, as you can probably talk about, they're a little more strict in what they want. They want to see a lot more documentation, proof of income and whatnot than in previous years, probably in the beginning of your career. So I'd say the biggest piece of advice would just be preparing.
I support that notion, Michael. See a mortgage broker, talk to them right away, get prepared. And once you are pre-approved, not pre-qualified or not just rate shopping, then you can enter the market with confidence. And then your job is much easier knowing that your clients are actually pre-qualified.
Yeah, an online mortgage calculator is not a pre-qualification or a pre-approval.
Helpful, but yeah, definitely not. Definitely not.
Yeah.
Well, that was great, Mike. I appreciate you diving deep into that. I want to end the call with something I call speed round, or this or that. I have a bunch of questions here. They're just kind of light and fun, not so deep in the economics, that I think people would enjoy learning about you and get to know you a little bit better. So you ready for this?
Let's do it.
You can elaborate. You can have quick answers. It's totally up to you.
Okay.
First question is house or condo?
House.
That's
I
so simple.
For me, I have 3 kids. I need a house with a yard. I I'm very fidgety. I don't like small spaces. I prefer a house.
Fixed or variable?
Ooh. I personally are probably a variable guy. It really depends on your risk tolerance. I think right now variable is higher than fixed
Yeah.
for the site. But if you look in the history, that's probably one of the first times in the last 20 years where variable is actually higher. So
Yeah.
I would, yeah, I would say variable for sure.
Lift weights or run?
Lift weights. I prefer to lift weights. However, I'm a fair weather runner. Now that it's warm outside, I've been running again outside. So, but weights are probably my thing.
Are you sugar or salt?
I actually do not like sugar. So I would, you put a bag of chips in front of me, I will demolish the bag of chips, but you can put all the cakes and everything in front of me, I won't touch it. Not that I
Really?
don't like it, I just don't need it.
Disciplined. One of the few individuals that are disciplined. Okay.
Well, when it comes to chips, I'm not very disciplined.
Beer or wine?
Oh, beer. Yeah, no, I prefer beer, but I do like some white wine at home on a Friday night. And
Beer and
today's Friday,
chips.
actually. So
Beer and chips is the way to your heart, hey?
yeah, beer and pizza, maybe. Yeah.
Are you morning or evening?
Someone asked me this recently. I was on a panel at Real Estate Awards, and I'm definitely a morning person, but I'm also kind of a night person as well. Like if I get 6 hours sleep, I'm good. So usually up at like 5:30 and go to bed at about 11:30. So a little bit of both. But if I had to choose one, I'd say a morning person for sure.
Yeah.
I can wake up within seconds of my alarm and get up right away.
If you're up before probably 7, I'd say that classifies you as a morning person. So yeah. BMW or Mercedes?
Ooh, I would say probably BMW.
Hmm.
If I had to really choose.
Next one's kind of an obvious one. Who's your favorite sports team?
Oh, the best hockey team in Canada, of course, the Edmonton Oilers.
If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be? Can't say Edmonton.
um, if I'm choosing places I've traveled to, I'd say Hawaii for sure. I've never been overseas to Europe. I think like Italy would be cool, but I'd say probably Hawaii. Somewhere warm. I don't like the winter, although I live in one of the coldest places in Canada.
But you win a ton of awards doing what you do, so it's probably worth it, right?
Yeah, it's hard to move now.
What kind of music are you listening to these days? Genres, bands, songs?
You know what? Again, I listen to everything. I don't really have like a favorite genre of music. I love country, I love rock, I love pop. A little partial to Justin Bieber, some of his new stuff. People always make fun of me, but I like it all, really. I can go to anywhere and have a good time, no matter the music that's playing.
Off the top of your head, what's your favorite movie all time?
uh, Old school.
Yeah, there you
Laugh on
go.
that movie.
Yeah, classic. And last one here is what is the last book you read?
Ooh, I don't physically read a lot of books, but I listen to Audible, and the most recent book I read was called "Say Yes to Everything,"
Hmm.
and it's about trying new things in life. Obviously, you're going to say no to some things if they're not good for you, but step outside the box, have an open mind, say yes to everything. If you had, would you have asked me? Had you asked me 2 years ago if I would have done a podcast like this, I would have said no. Now I say yes to it all. So stepping outside of your comfort zone and just trying new things. Like I love bungee jumping, I love skydiving, all that stuff. Like I'll try everything multiple times.
Have you
With
seen that movie, Yes Man?
Jim Carrey?
Yeah,
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
yeah. That reminds me of that when he says yes to everything and just ends up learning all these things, saving people from jumping off rooftops, like just getting into life, right?
I think it's a really cool attitude in life. Just saying yes to things and trying new things. And, again, 3 years ago, I would have never done a video. Now I'm doing it. So as if you can expand everything, you're going to be a better person overall and have more skills.
Lastly, where can people find you, Mike?
You can Google me. Instagram is probably where you'll find me the easiest. Michael Waddell Real Estate on Instagram, my name on Facebook. Google. I'm pretty Googleable these days. So yeah, anywhere, just type in my name, you'll find it.
All right. Thanks for doing this, Mike. I appreciate it.
Marky, thank you.